Hello and welcome to Red Hat Enterprise Presents. This is episode number 25, Introduction to Satellite. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm really excited. We've got a lot of great things to talk about on the show today. So time appropriate greetings to all of you. As usual, in the chat is the best way to talk with the host, talk with our guest, ask your questions, and be part of the show. So if you are not on our Discord, there's a Discord server as well, and we'll share all of those links throughout the show, and they'll be in the show notes afterwards. But before we get too deep into today's topic, I do have an announcement I'm really excited about. I would like to introduce our new recurring co-host, Brian Smith. How you doing today, Brian?
Good. Thanks so much, Eric. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us what you do here at Red Hat, and what brings you what made you decide to jump onto a every other week live stream.
Sounds good. Yeah. So right now I'm a product manager in the RHEL business unit focused on automation and management. So what that means is I'm working with technologies like RHEL system roles and web consoles, stuff like that. I've moved into this position back in April, and before that, I was with Red Hat as a TAM, a technical account manager, for about 3 years. So that's my background. Before that, I worked as a sysadmin for many years. So yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to have you as a co-host. There's always a lot to keep track of between the chat, the stream, the conversation, the interview. So I, for one, am very thankful to have you. And as I recall, you are not new to this particular YouTube channel. As I recall, a couple of years ago, your wonderful narration skills were put to good use for the RHEL 8.0 beta. There was a bunch of videos you did that quick overviews of new feature in RHEL 8, and that's actually how I really got in touch with RHEL 8 and started learning all the things.
Yeah, I have a bunch of blogs and videos out there. Hopefully more videos to come soon. So
Yeah, and shameless plug for Brian. If you follow our blog, Brian has been a machine publishing probably close to 8, if not a dozen, blogs around system roles right now. So if you're looking to automate your builds, if you're looking to standardize your environment, system roles are a great way to do that. And Brian, I think, has the monopoly on system role blog content right now.
yeah, we need to do a RHEL presents just on system roles sometime. Hopefully soon.
Yeah, that's actually on the roadmap for early next year. But yeah, we
Sweet.
definitely do. They are incredibly powerful, and in fact, kind of is a good segue into today's topic because system roles, Ansible, things like tools like this have come a very long way since my days as a systems administrator, and one of the other tools that we've actually not covered in 25 episodes on the, or I should say in 24 episodes we've only mentioned this product in passing, but that is Red Hat Satellite. And I could think of no one better to come on the show and talk about Satellite than our own Matthew Yee. He is a technical marketing manager here at Red Hat. He works on my team, and he was with me a couple of weeks ago as we talked about RHEL 8.5. Looks like we're having some streaming issues, so give me just a second, and I'll bring Matt on to introduce himself, and we'll let's see. Hey, Matt,
Hey
welcome
guys,
back. I'm so glad you decided to join me 2 weeks in a row.
thanks for having me back, and thanks for the intro. Brian, welcome to the show, and look forward to seeing you more on Red Hat Presents.
Thanks, Matthew.
So, Matt,
Um,
for those that
oh, go
missed
ahead,
last
Eric. Sorry.
week's, yeah, no worries. So, for those that missed last week's episode, why don't you give a quick introduction on who you are, what you do here at Red Hat, and if you're doing anything exciting right now.
I'm a technical marketing manager here at Red Hat. I've been at the company for about 5 months now. In the past, I've mostly worked in the storage industry, and before that, I was a sysadmin as well. So I've been using Red Hat probably since, well, I've been using it since undergrad. Um, So what I'm going to talk about today is Red Hat Satellite, and I'm going to give an introduction to Red Hat Satellite to everybody out there. Um, and it's very timely because yesterday we released version 6.10 of Red Hat Satellite, and we're very excited about this release.
It's almost as if we planned it that way.
So Matthew, I'm guessing a lot of the viewers are not really familiar with satellite. What does it do? Why would I want to have it? What problems is it going to solve for me as a RHEL customer?
So from the point of view of a systems administrator, um, a lot of us have had this problem, but sometimes when you do a YUM or DNF update, what happens if the firewall hasn't been opened or if there's no proxy configured? You can't update your system. There are lots of ways to work around it. The recommended way of doing it at Red Hat is Red Hat Satellite. So what Red Hat Satellite does is, well, and this is not all that it does, but it basically provides content. And when I say content, I mean stuff like RPMs, Ansible collections, even files, stuff like that, and just make it available locally so that from a security point of view, there is only one opening in the firewall that has to be opened, and you can pull all the things that you need onto your Red Hat Satellite, and then you can manage all of your hosts through Red Hat Satellite. So Red Hat Satellite's not just for enabling hosts to get their updates. You can also provision machines, and you can also take advantage of some of our hosted services like insights at console.redhat.com. And just a little plug here for those that don't know, insights will do stuff like look for security vulnerabilities. What else will it do? It will let you know how to fix it. It will provide an Ansible playbook so that you can do a push button remediation on those vulnerabilities that it finds.
Okay, cool. So tell us a little bit about satellite and the projects it's based on. Is satellite itself open source? Are there upstream projects that are providing for satellite?
Absolutely. Like all Red Hat products, there is an upstream open source combination of these products. So first of all, the content management system is provided by the Pulp project. This is all then managed through the Foreman project. We've got Candlepin that allows you to manage subscriptions. And there's a whole bunch of stuff out there. So where Red Hat offers value here is we combine all of these projects, and we make sure that they all work together well, and just ensure that you have the tools that you need to manage your hosts.
That sounds good. So Eric had mentioned Satellite 6.10 was just released. I'm actually in the process of upgrading my satellite server right now. Tell us a little bit about what's new in Satellite 6.10 and what some of the cool new features are.
Yeah. So before I get into that, Eric, can you pop in the link to the 6.10 software?
Yes, I can. And my apologies to our RHEL YouTubers. We went live in all the right places except on RHEL YouTube, so that's been corrected now. So welcome to the show. And you wanted the Satellite 6.10 link. Let me put that in there. Forgive the host for being out of his mind. There we go.
And I know this is an intro show, but for all of the people who are already using Satellite and are looking to upgrade, I've had multiple questions on this so far. Go through the upgrade guide, and especially I want to draw attention to a foreman maintain command where you have to fix the permissions. Make sure you run that. Otherwise, you might find that you'll run into problems. But
Yeah,
in
I was just
yes,
gonna say, yeah, that's been my experience as well, and working with a lot of customers over the years. Is if you follow the documentation for upgrading satellite, things will go pretty smoothly. If you try to just wing it and figure it out on your own, your results might vary. So I would, like Matthew said, I definitely recommend review the documentation. The upgrade procedure is a little bit different with 6.10 than it has been in the past. There's some extra steps, like Matthew said, so you definitely want to look at all those steps and make sure you're following the documentation there.
and am I sharing my screen? I don't think I am. Or was I? And now I'm not.
Yeah. Welcome to a live show, folks. Anything that can't go wrong will go wrong.
Okay, so you guys can see that now?
Yep. And now so can our audience.
Okay, cool. So like Brian was alluding to just now, there are a bunch of additional steps from your regular upgrade, and I'll give you the reasons for that. So I don't want to spend too long on the new features of 6.10 because this is meant to be an intro show. But for those of you looking for a reason to upgrade, because I know everybody loves upgrading, we are migrating the backend from Pulp 2 to Pulp 3. And what that means is the content management system is being upgraded. There's a couple of reasons for that. This is to prepare all of our current customers for a future update to Satellite 7.0. And so a lot of I would say if like in terms of doing an upgrade, the most time consuming part of that upgrade, we're asking you to do that right now with 6.10. We've included a bunch of migration slash upgrade tooling in sorry, let me step back a bit. So in order to upgrade, you're going to need to make sure you're on the latest, what we call Z-Stream release of 6.9. So that would be 6.9.7. That includes a bunch of upgrade tooling. And in the upgrade manual, we'll tell you how to use that upgrade tooling to migrate your Pulp 2 content into Pulp 3. Without going too deep into it, the upgrade process is now, or at least the migration process from Pulp 2 to Pulp 3 is, I'm going to use this term anyway, but it's idempotent. So you can run it as many times as you want. You can stop the operation and rerun the operation. It's designed to make the upgrade process as painless as possible. So because it's a very time-consuming process, we want you to be able to complete it on your own time whenever is convenient. And once the migration is done, the upgrade is very timely. We're estimating it'll take like 20 minutes for you to run after you've upgraded the Pulp backend.
So
Anyway,
you mentioned
yeah,
being
go
able
ahead, Eric.
to stop and restart this upgrade process. So is that something that when I leave the office at 6 o'clock, I can kick this off as I'm walking out the door, and if it's not done, say by the next morning, when I get into the office around 8 or 9 a.m., I can stop it. That way, my satellite server isn't hung up during the day when we're trying to work with our different environments.
Or even it's actually better than that. So let's say you ignored my advice just now to run the preparation script. Your migration will actually fail. So what you can then do is you can go back and run the migration or the preparation script like I asked you to, and then you can kick off the migration all over again, and it should complete properly. That's what it's really used for.
That's awesome. That's great to have that kind of that check and balance in place. Because I don't know about any of our listeners, but I know as a former sysadmin, reading the manual was not exactly high on my priority list. It was just go do the thing and move on to the next fire.
So one of the reasons why we've made the upgrade process like this is because it takes a long time. It's hard to predict how long it's going to take. We have a command that will do an analysis on your Pulp 2 backend and give you an estimate, but we don't know for sure how long it's going to take. So let's say we estimated 3 hours, but it really took 1 hour. And then in between that 2 hours, there were some synchronization updates that were done. Um, you're going to want to run that upgrade script one more time before you actually do the switch over to 6.10. That's another reason why you would do that. I think I've spent way too much time on this. Just real quick, we are collapsing, like some of the benefits here. We are collapsing the structured data from 2 databases to 1. We are getting rid of MongoDB and moving all of that data into PostgreSQL. There is Ansible content support, which allows for synchronization of Ansible collections so that you can then synchronize those with your Ansible Automation Hub. And we've got some disconnected air-gapped content enhancements. So we can permit versioning of the content database. That means you can now do incremental exports of the content to another disconnected satellite. And I think that's all I want to say about 6.10 so far. Because this is an intro, I wanted to really get into the demo and show you what this all looks like. So, do you guys have any questions?
Haven't seen anything in chat. Brian, you got anything?
No. That seemed like a great overview. Yeah, thanks, Matthew.
Yeah, no problem. Where is my tab to log in? Here it is. So I'm going to log in.
Using a password manager, always good.
Yes, I only make use of the best security practices. That's not true. I usually ignore them.
Funny enough, I started using a password manager because I was lazy and didn't want to have to type out my password all the time. I've since adopted more advanced security practices like using 18-character randomly generated passwords.
I don't know any of my passwords anymore. So
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
I know how to log into my password manager. After that, I got nothing.
Exactly.
Anyway, this is your friendly RHEL public service announcement for this episode. Use a password manager. And now back to satellite.
So here we got, this is what you have when you first log in. Gives you an overview of what's happening. What can I say about this? These are the hosts that I have included into my satellite. You guys may have noticed that I am running 6.10. I installed 6.10 yesterday, and then I added these hosts, and it looks like they work properly. For those people who don't know, Satellite 6, at least the 6 branch, runs on Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7. We don't have support for RHEL 8 yet. That is coming with Satellite 7.0, which is the next release. You guys may be wondering, well, why is that? The real reason is we don't have time. We need to check it, and there were higher priorities that we needed to work on to dump into Satellite 6.10, which is why we currently don't have support for 8.0 of RHEL yet.
So Matthew, what about if I have RHEL 8 clients?
No problem with those. Okay. RHEL 8 clients will work. Okay. We're also going to include RHEL 9 support with 7.0. In other words, RHEL 9 clients with Satellite 7.0. A real quick rundown. One of the first things you're going to do when you install Satellite is you are going to export your subscriptions. In other words, you'll create something called a manifest within access.redhat.com. You'll export that manifest file, and then you'll add it to your satellite. So that way you now have a remote copy of all of your entitlements. The next thing you're probably going to do is you're going to add a bunch of repositories that you want to sync down into your satellite. So You can search for any number of repositories. Type it in here. Obviously, this is Red Hat. I shouldn't put that there. It's actually rel. Anyway, you see all the stuff that's supported for rel 8 right here. I've added the Upstream repo and the base OS repo. Once you've done that, you're going to want to synchronize them. So the default synchronization mode for Red Hat Satellite is to not download the yum packages that you'll associate with the repository. Yeah, this is the one I wanted to show. What the default synchronization mode is going to pull down all of the metadata associated with those yum packages. And there's a reason for that. It takes a long time and a lot of bandwidth to suck these down. These packages will be pulled through when you add your clients and your clients do an update or they install new yum packages.
So
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So I remember when I used Satellite way back in like the 5.4 days that you didn't really have an option. You subscribed to a repository and you had to pull down, like in this case, all 21,000 packages. And like you said, that takes a lot of bandwidth, a lot of disk space. But it sounds like we've kind of gone to an as needed basis. Is that a good way to describe that?
Well, that's the default behavior, and I haven't been around here long enough, but if I had to guess, the reason why we made that the default behavior is we didn't want to shock any new satellite users into suddenly filling up all their drives with packages. However, I will say, if you really want to, you can synchronize them down fully if you really wanted to.
Yeah, and that helps especially with a disconnected environment. Maybe it's not something that's air gapped, but if it's disconnected or it has, you only want to open up that firewall ports, say when you're refreshing your patching cycle or something. That's a great way to handle that. But as far as most businesses are concerned, and my own satellite server here at home, I don't need 21,000 packages sitting on my satellite server. Chances are I'm not going to use 95% of them because I'm not going to get deep into kernel development, or I'm not a developer, so I don't need all the different programming languages. So having an always on connection, it really helps to pull down all the metadata. So it's got that map of dependencies and all that kind of thing. And then when I go to trigger an update from satellite, or when I go and install a one-off package, from one of my satellite registered clients, it's nice to know that then that client is talking to the satellite server, satellite is talking to Red Hat CDN, and it pulls down exactly the packages and exactly the dependencies that I need. And so you're talking about, megabytes worth of space versus gigabytes for something that you're hardly even going to touch ever.
And this makes...
And just sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say that the on-demand repositories make setting up a new satellite server, so much faster. Whereas before, if you had a bunch of repositories, I mean, you could be looking at hours, even days, to pull all that content down, depending on your connection speed. Whereas with on-demand, it's extremely quick, and you can get up and running and start serving that content.
And just for a frame of...
We just keep walking all over each other.
Sorry, Eric.
That's okay, man. Did either of you ever have like a repo sync spreadsheet? When I was running Satellite, I literally had a spreadsheet that was like color coded based on, okay, between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. we're going to sync like Red Hat Satellite or Red Hat rel 5 packages, and then between 3 and 4 in the morning we're going to sync rel 6 packages. I mean, we literally had a spreadsheet, and it was so tough back in those days that we actually worked with the backup teams to make sure that we were doing that we weren't going to step on when they were using like the storage area network, just to make sure that satellite and backups and all these other things, and it was all spreadsheet driven. It was miserable.
I've only ever worked in environments where my method for gaining access to content was to yell at the network guy to give me access to the proxy, or even better, just open up the outgoing connections. Um, but the thing I wanted to draw attention to, which I kept interrupting you guys, and I'm really sorry about that.
No worries.
Just for perspective, the Upstream repository with those 21,000 packages is about 60 gigs. The base OS is probably, I want to say it's about 5 gigs. But
Sounds about right.
if yeah, um, now for our viewers, you might be saying, well, that's not a big deal. Why wouldn't I want to sync all of these down? And that's an entirely reasonable statement. But for large organizations, when you start including all the extra stuff, and by extra stuff, I mean like, I don't know, Ansible, JBoss, all that stuff, it starts to get big pretty quick. And that's not even including custom content that you want to add to Satellite. Um, we've spent quite a bit of time talking about repos. Um, shall we
Wait, are
get
you about to tell
into,
me that satellite does more than just repository management?
well, I wanted to actually show you guys what was going on and how it worked. Um, so what I'm going to do is jump into activation keys. So I'm going to show you here. I got one for rel 7. One of the first things you're going to do after you've pulled your content down is you're going to want to create an activation key. And what you end up doing is with this is your activation key right here. I feel comfortable showing this to everybody because if you ran it right now, it wouldn't do anything because you're not connected to my satellite. Anyway, this activation key is associated with a bunch of repositories, and it's rel 7. And I gave it access to all of these repositories. So once you've added it to your host, you'll be able to do updates from those repos. So I'm going to jump into my rel host here, my remote rel host. Let's hope this works.
Said everyone who's done a live demo ever.
Yeah, okay, everybody can see that now, right?
Yep.
Yeah, looks good.
So I'm going to do very little typing here, actually, because it's a live demo. I am, as you can see, this is in EC2. One of the first things I need to do here, and you will probably not to do that. You will probably not need to do this in your own environment, but I'm going to remove the Red Hat Update Infrastructure Client, or RUI as we refer to it, because I don't want my host updating from RUI. I want it to actually update from Satellite. So one more time, just to be clear, this step is probably not necessary in your environment unless you are in Amazon. Then I'm going to do a yum clean all. And then I am going to do this, which is to enable subscription manager to manage the repos. Okay, so thus ends the optional stuff. Here's the mandatory stuff. So this is, so you'll see, it's running rel 8.4. I'm going to join it up to my satellite. This step is very important, and I'll explain what this does. So Catello CA consumer IP, this package, this is a custom package created by my satellite, which then configures Subscription Manager to point to my satellite. If you don't do this step and you run Subscription Manager, it's going to point to the Red Hat CDN and start doing stuff off of the CDN. Make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good.
And now I'm going to use the activation key I created previously. This might take a little bit of time. And once this is there it is. Once it's completed, we can do a subscription manager repos. And you can see here that it is now pointing to the particular IP I have for my satellite within Amazon. So the next step, let's do a yum update, shall we?
It's always a good plan. And if it were me, mostly because I use this as a giant sledgehammer, anytime I'm doing an update or any kind of yum operation, I usually lead with a yum clean all, just out of sheer paranoia. It seems like when you're doing any kind of maintenance window that it seems like there's always some metadata that's expired and or some dependency that hasn't been sorted out. So if you do a yum clean all and then do a yum update, it pulls all that stuff fresh. And I'd encourage that even more because you are switching repositories and not just repos, but you're completely changing where that content's coming from. So I have noticed in the past, maybe not so much recently, but I have noticed when switching from Red Hat CDN to a local satellite server that I've run into issues with that before. So just a fun tip. It's kind of like rebooting a Windows machine. Usually a yum clean all fixes all problems. Brian's laughing, so I know he's seen this before in the wild.
Yeah, yum clean all is a very useful command.
Just so you guys know what I'm doing down here is I also have a newly provisioned RHEL 7 box. I'm going to add that as well to my satellite. And I am going to apply the RHEL 7 key. Oh, you know what I forgot? I did not download the Catello CA and install it.
So you didn't read the manual.
Exactly. All of these sins, like bad security practices, not reading the manual, running everything as root. Do we even work for Red Hat? Like,
do as we say, not as we do.
Yeah. My excuse is this is a live demo.
Right. Fewer obstacles, the better.
Yeah, exactly.
That one actually. Oh, it was unable to find.
So this is a good one here. I'm going to draw everybody's attention to this. Don't worry about it. Just ignore it. That's what I wanted to do. So I've got everything updating.
So while those updates are running, I wanted to point out if you are on the Twitters, you can follow us at Red Hat RHEL. That is a newer Twitter handle that we've started up in the past week or so. So you can get news about this show, about Red Hat Enterprise Linux, events that are upcoming, and anything that may pertain to RHEL. And I believe Red Hat Satellite has one as well, and I think that's at Red Hat Satellite. And if you want to engage with the show directly, you can tag us on social media, and we've been using hashtag RHELPresents. So just a little public service announcement. I usually hate when shows do this, but we're, as you can see, with some of the new content, some of the new guests, and having a new host and a new co-host. Show's undergoing a lot of changes. We're growing it. So tell a friend. If you don't have any friends, go out on Twitter. All of your friends are there. So just a quick public service announcement. Of course, like and subscribe the episode. So looks like your RHEL 8 box is getting close to being updated.
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
Yeah, I love that. It always gets to the last action, and it's like, do I really want to be done? Am I sure? Let me think about this.
Unless one Lopez has already hacked into my satellite.
So Matthew, while this is running, how do content views affect these kind of updates you're doing? How does that work?
Right. So just to sum it up real quick, let's say you have RHEL 7 repos, you have RHEL 8 repos, you have RHEL 6 and RHEL 5 repos. You don't want, and then one of the things you can do, which I don't recommend doing, is you can make them all available under one activation key. Do you really want all of those repos available to anyone in your network that has that activation key? I mean, you certainly can. I don't know if it's bad, but at the same time, if you really wanted to, and let's say you are a very controlling sysadmin, we give you the choice to create a subset of all of those repos. In other words, a subset of that content, so that you can associate that with an activation key. So just to reiterate, content views are for creating access subsets to your content, so that not all of it is given to everybody.
Yeah, and another way I've talked about this before too is it's freezing that content at a point in time, right? So like a situation you want to avoid, let's say you have like 3 environments, dev, test, and prod in your environment, and you're going to go ahead and patch, you're going to update dev today, okay? And then 2 weeks later, now I want to update test. Well, if you're not using satellite and not using content views, in those 2 weeks that have passed, there might be additional updates you're getting now in your test environment from RHEL that we've released in those 2 weeks. Okay, and let's say 2 weeks later, now you go to update prod. And again, if you're not using satellite, you just do a yum update. It's going to pull the latest content. There could have even been a minor release. It could have gone from 8.4 to 8.5 in those 2 weeks that have passed. And now you're installing RHEL 8.5 in prod, and you've never tested that out in your dev and test environment. So with a content view, you take that, you make a content view. It's that point in time snapshot, and you update all 3 environments, dev, test, and prod, from that same content view, and they get the exact same access to content. And so you're not having that situation where prod's getting later content than dev or test.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Brian. Thank you.
And one other cool feature I'll throw out with content views that I really like is you can exclude content too. So say, like the Emacs package, for example, you could exclude that from your content view, and so your users couldn't install that. So if there's certain packages you want to exclude out of there.
Just so you guys can see, I have finished updating my RHEL 8 host, and I'm just rebooting it. I'll just log back in again.
If you look at RHEL Presents episode 24 from 2 weeks ago, you're going to actually see Matthew, Don, Scott, and myself talking about RHEL 8.5 and all the cool new stuff. And Matthew even gave an impromptu demo of system roles, so definitely go check that out as the system's rebooted.
I am going to switch over to the satellite interface, satellite UI, because
Perfect.
I'll tell you guys what I'm going to do next. Can you guys see that?
We can.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so both hosts should be showing up now, as they both are. So that's my RHEL 8 host and my RHEL 7 host. A note about this, you may recall earlier I did a cat Etsy Red Hat release, and it showed Red Hat 8.4. Well, now it's showing 8.5 because I've done a reboot and or an update and a reboot. Why isn't it logged in yet? Still booting, and it's the new version. My RHEL 7 host is currently updating, but is not complete. So it's going to take some time before it's ready. We've got 15 minutes left. I wanted to show one more cool feature, and that's remote execution. What I'm going to do with remote execution is install the Insights client. And what that means is I'll be able to use or view the client at some point on console.redhat.com and use Insights to take a look at what's wrong with it. Or I can even look through here through the Insights interface, which is, where is Insights?
Yeah, right there. Go back to yeah, right there
Right
under Red Hat Cloud.
here. That's right. Oh, I haven't configured this yet. Okay, I'll do that later.
So before we move on to the next leg, David in the YouTube chat actually had a good question. Do you have any comments on install and configuration of a disconnected satellite server?
So I've never done this myself, but here's how I think I would do it. I would have my satellite server. I would have two satellite servers installed and through a connected network. Then I would disconnect the, shall we say, the disconnected satellite server, move it into the air-gapped environment. And yeah, that would probably be it. Now, after you've done the initial installation, you can then use, it's a hammer CLI command to do the export of the content from the primary satellite, primary online satellite, and walk it over to your disconnected satellite.
Yeah, and we have documentation that talks a lot about that. It's called inter-satellite sync, or ISS. I don't know if that's a play on the whole space and satellite thing, but anyways, yeah, inter-satellite sync. It's documented how to do, export the content, import it in there on your disconnected satellite server.
So just to show you what, okay, I'm going to go back and start this over again because I don't think I'm doing a very good job explaining what's going on here. So I'm in the hosts view, all hosts. I'm going to click on this host here. These two hosts, 29.5 and 29.6, both don't have the Insights client installed yet. And then what I'm going to do is edit this host. And I'm going to, you know what? I don't think I have imported the rules yet. No, I haven't. Okay, so this is a really fresh version of Satellite that I have running. What I'm about to do is one of the initial steps you're going to run yourself after you've done an installation. So one of those is to import the Ansible rules. And for those of you that don't know, Red Hat Satellite comes with a few default roles or playbooks. And it's also compatible with our other favorite product, Red Hat Enterprise Linux System Rules, which I actually know I have installed on here.
That's Brian's baby right now.
And we did just publish a blog on how to use system roles with Satellite. So if you want to get more information on that, I'll try to post that here in the chat.
So I'm gonna add the Red Hat Insights client to the server. And now I'm gonna go back and run that role against this server. So again, just in case you didn't see it, go to hosts, all hosts, select the host, click on edit, click on Ansible roles, and then add this or assign it to this host. And now I'm going to run it. So run the Ansible role. And that's going to install the client. You can see the progress by clicking on the host name there. And this is expected. It's unreachable. That's because, for those that don't know, Ansible requires SSH. Well, it uses SSH, and I haven't imported the public key from the satellite server into my host yet. So I got to do that, and you do that by, I'm going to swap screens again.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, and I'm going to swap over to my Terminator. And as root, you do that. You can also use SSH copy -ID to do it, which is probably a better way of doing it than what I just did. But there's instructions on this in Brian's blog, actually. So I'm going to go back to the satellite interface.
That's keeping me on my toes today.
Okay. I'm going to rerun this job. The reason why you see me going, is because I was actually looking for this button. Rerun. I'm going to submit it. And I'm going to click on the host name. Here we go.
That's looking good.
So remote execution is really handy. You can basically do anything and apply it to any number of hosts. So let's say you had 100 hosts, you could remote execute against all 100 of them, which means that you can also run commands like yum install or dnf install some kind of package and install that on your host. I'm in the background here, I'm going to log into my RHEL 7 host, and I'll show you one more thing.
And I think the power of satellite comes in from a lot of the different tools that Red Hat has been has been expanding on, between system roles, image builder, satellite. I mean, if you look at a greenfield infrastructure nowadays, it would be so easy to create all this stuff using infrastructure as code, golden images, and just lay all this stuff out. Set up different roles and profiles in satellite. Have your content views, which we didn't go too deep into on this episode, but having all of those things, you could literally tear down your entire infrastructure and with the click of a button rebuild it from basically nothing. Just use image builder to create a template, have that image builder image tie into your satellite system, so when it first boots, your system registers with insights and with satellite. And then you can use remote execution, you can use scheduled jobs, you can use different profiles to using profiles as a generic term to define that this is going to be a database server. So my database users need to have access to it. It needs these. It needs these additional repositories for this database, and basically just sitting back as an operator instead of as a systems administrator. I don't have to go in and do this on 500 servers anymore. Instead, it really is a step closer to that dream of having infrastructure as code and having an infrastructure that is the same across every platform, across every infrastructure base, whether that's virtual, bare metal, cloud, or some kind of hybrid of all the above. This just gets so powerful as a systems administrator.
And Eric, another just on that train of thought, we also now have the satellite Ansible collection that's supported, and you can use that to write code to implement your satellite server. Automate the installation and configuration of your satellite resources, either repositories. All the steps that Matthew was showing earlier of enabling the repositories. You can enable that through a playbook using that satellite Ansible collection.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And just before we finish this live stream, I'm going to install Vim on these two hosts that I just configured. And you do that by going back and, well, there's multiple ways of doing it. For the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to show you how to do it by going to all hosts, clicking on the two hosts that you want, going to schedule remote job, and it's a command we want to run. It'll run it through SSH. The command we'll run is yum install -y vim. And hopefully this works. Yeah, this is working. Cool, eh? So I'm going to hit back. I'm going to go to the other host. Oof. Got to install a lot of stuff here. And it's done.
But to your point, imagine having to do that same process across 100 nodes. Instead, you clicked it, ran it once, and you came in and we shouldn't, but as technologists, we were actually surprised it worked on the first try.
This is a live demo. That's why
Right.
I'm surprised it all works. And that's
So
all I wanted to show today.
We've got a couple of minutes left, and Rope 9, or our Hope 9 probably, put a good comment into chat about how all this works well using these different tools, but that's what containers excel at. Brian or Matt, do you have a comment? I kind of posted in chat that it's just another way of getting to the same place. We all know that within technology, there's 100 ways to do any one thing. But do you want to talk to the container story specifically?
I'll give, if you don't mind, I'll go real fast, and I'll go first, Brian. A common gripe I hear with customers is they all want to do containers, but they don't know what to use them for. So yeah, absolutely, use containers. And if you work for a business that's been around, has lots of hosts, has a real critical need for advanced infrastructure, absolutely go for it. But not everybody's going to be like you, is what I'm going to say. And not everybody is going to understand how to use containers, how to build a CI/CD pipeline. I mean, a lot of people out there, I don't know, how many businesses are using some form of Git or GitHub internally to manage their source code? I think it should be all, but I don't think that's always the case.
Well,
Brian, what do you think?
Before I hand it over to Brian, I wanted to add just one quick comment on that. One of the things that I kind of heard in between the lines of what you're saying was with something like Podman and containers, they're there seems to be a threshold somewhere, and it comes up a lot quicker than you think, where just managing Podman containers by hand starts to get it out of hand. It starts to become untenable, and that's when you start thinking about something like an orchestrator, something like Red Hat OpenShift, or just straight Kubernetes. So while running 3 or 4 containers may be great, while even running a dozen containers on a single node or a couple of different nodes may work to begin with, it's one of those things that can quickly get out of hand, especially with something as small and as prolific as a container. So using something like Satellite in an existing infrastructure would definitely help. I look at it as almost a spectrum of, not everyone's going to use containers at all. Some people will have 3 or 4, and that's enough for them. Other people start out using a couple, and then within a couple of quarters, they realize that we have 1,000 containers, no way to schedule any of them. We need an orchestrator. So that's kind of what I heard as you were talking, Matt. Go ahead,
But
Brian.
also, so I got one more wrench to throw in the works here. If you need persistent storage, how many people know how to manage that?
Right. It is a different skill set required, for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, someone's going to say, "Hey, I'm going to use an object storage system for persistent storage." How many organizations out there actually have some sort of object storage to locally to manage all this stuff? Anyway, sorry, Brian, what
Go
do you
ahead,
think?
Brian.
Yeah, no, I think you guys covered it really well. I mean, the key takeaway is, if you want to run just rel, we have that covered. If you want to run some containers, we have Podman, and if you want to do a lot of containers, we have OpenShift. So no matter where you're at, with if you want to use containers, don't want to use containers, we have solutions to help you out with that.
With that, we are at the top of the hour, and I wanted to first off thank you, Matt, very much for coming on to 2 episodes in a row and talking about Satellite. I know that this was long overdue. 25 episodes before we even demoed Satellite. I know we've mentioned it in passing, but thank you so much for coming on back-to-back episodes and demoing different pieces of Satellite. In fact, if you watch this episode, please post in the comments. We've been toying with the idea of doing a Satellite mini series and just kind of touching on some of the different major categories of Satellite. So if you'd be interested in a Satellite focused mini series, put it in the comments, put it in our Discord server. And then I would be remiss if I didn't promote our next episode. And in 2 weeks, join Brian Smith and Father Linux himself. That's his Twitter handle, Scott McCarty. He's one of the product managers here at Red Hat. We are going to talk about all things containers. So we're going to talk about Podman. There was a question about there's a question about logging with Podman. So come back in 2 weeks, same time, same channels. And we'll promote that. But I did want to add that there is a little bit of a twist to our look at Podman, with it being the beginning of December and we're kind of winding down for the year. We're all kind of looking forward to that extended break at the end of December. We're going to add a little bit of a fun twist to it, and we're going to deploy a gaming server on using Podman. So we haven't decided which one, whether that's Minecraft or something else, but definitely something I'm looking forward to. It'll be a great conversation, and Scott is a lot of fun. So tune back in 2 weeks, and we'll have that episode. Brian, any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
No, just thanks so much, Matthew. This was awesome.
No problem. I really enjoyed it. Hope to be back on again sometime.
Well, I've already gotten a vote in chat that the Penguin Whisperer would like a Satellite miniseries. So if the Penguin Whisperer says we should have a Satellite miniseries, we probably should. But we'll look at doing that sometime next year. But until then, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to like and subscribe this video and our channel. Join us every 2 weeks. And definitely follow us on Twitter at RedHatRel. And you can follow Satellite at Red Hat Satellite. Both on Twitter. Brian, Matt, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks.